now. We're going to have this posted by the end of the day, hopefully. Hopefully things don't get too out of hand with my schedule the rest of the day. But yeah, if you can't be recorded, don't want to be, please drop now. And thank you. All right. So welcome everybody to this very first virtual community group meeting. I started as Kansas City, and then as I started to see the RSVP list grow and grow and grow, we're regional. This is more than just Kansas City. This is more than just Kansas, Missouri. We're up in Iowa. I'm pretty sure we now have Nebraska. I think I might see some Illinois people in there as well, which all are welcome. This is awesome. We were at 112 RSVPs. I am not upset to see that many people. So welcome. Let's see how this goes not being in person. I am Dale Ziegler. By day, I'm a senior business analyst with 7 Summits. So I'm a consultant. And then Jeff, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi there. I'm Jeff Berger. I'm currently the Salesforce administrator over at Academy Bank here in Kansas City.
Awesome. Again, if you don't want to be recorded, drop off, please. Thank you. And also, conference call etiquette. If you're not talking, please mute yourself. But at the same time, we want this to be open when the time comes. So unmute yourself and speak freely. But if you're not, please mute. So some of our normal intro slides, we do have a Slack channel. I think there's 10 of us in there right now. So if you're interested, just send us an email over to our KC admin's email address there, and we'll get you set up. For those of you who are new to the Trailblazer community, the success community, or have moved to Kansas City but are familiar with how this whole community thing works, we actually have 5 user groups here in the KC Metro. The one that we're in right now is technically called the Administrators Group, but I'm lobbying to call it the Community Group because we're all everything. We have developers in here. We have our WIT members. We have marketers. We have nonprofit. This is a safe place, a welcome place for everybody to come, collaborate, learn, all the things. What is the Slack channel? So let me take a step back. We will PDF and share this deck afterwards, so the links will be available for that. So you can join Slack from there. Sorry about that. I did not call that out. But anyway, yes, we have multiple groups here in the Metro. If you want more information, you can go to that bit.ly at the top. Jeff and I are obviously here representing the admins group, and we're working on our next meeting in May. We'd now that we don't need to coordinate an actual meeting site, we'd love to do this monthly, if not more often. But we're working on details for May, so stay tuned. Do we have any of the other group leaders on the call to mention anything?
That Walmart sent us.
I saw Brian had RSVP'd, so I don't know if we have the dev group or anybody. No worries. The bit.ly is always up and ready with information. Do we have any Salesforce employees on the call? I know
yes,
at least
you do.
one.
Hello.
There he is.
Hey, Dale.
Mr. Gerholt. Please introduce yourself if there's anybody who doesn't know you, which I'd be shocked if they don't.
They might not. That's okay. So my name is Mike Gerholt. I am Senior Director of Admin Evangelism at Salesforce. I've been with the company since 2014 and been using Salesforce since 2006. So I think SteveMo still has me beat.
Awesome.
What do you mean by specialized market?
Well, typically we have sales reps.
Oh, sorry. I am not one of those.
That's okay. Thank you for joining us. We love having you.
Thanks for doing this.
Mike, as well as Steve, have actually presented in Kansas City before. So we're always happy to have people come in. Anybody and everybody. Thank you so much. Anybody else from Salesforce? And barbecue. And awesome barbecue. All right. Tom Halligan, lead sales engineer. Welcome, sir. All right. So resources and events, this one's kind of a loaded slide. So MVP office hours, which I'm on the team for. If you haven't joined us, we meet on the first and third Fridays of the month. So that'll be tomorrow, 1 o'clock. Any questions, any answers, any perspectives. It's not just MVPs answering the questions. Sometimes it's the MVPs asking them, but it's an open Q&A for any issues you might be facing, talking about upcoming releases, whatever. But it's an open hour. It'll be tomorrow at 1 o'clock, and so you can go register at the bit.ly there. World tours and Salesforce events. Obviously, we're in a weird place right now where a lot of things are getting postponed, a lot of things are getting canceled, some are moving to virtual. I'm really impressed with how updated all of these sites have been. Salesforce has been very transparent with the fluidity of things. The latest thing to come up that at least I've seen is that Trailhead X will be virtual, but the date is now TBD. But they do have a button on the site that says notify me. So it's essentially a save the date kind of a deal, and you can be notified when they do make an announcement on that. The webinars link there through Trailhead is awesome. It's upcoming live webinars. It's also access to recorded webinars on pretty much anything and everything, Salesforce technical, Salesforce conceptual, whatever. It's a great place to go get additional resources. Community events. I'm on the Midwest Dream and Planning team, so that's what falls under the community event side of things. Trailhead has a very up-to-date site with what's going on with all the events. A lot of them are getting postponed and canceled, but Virtual Dreamin' is very much happening on May 16th. Steve, I believe, will be presenting there as well. So you can go out to virtualdreamin.com, get information and sign up for that. And I believe it's free. My favorite four-letter word that starts with F. One thing I want to call out is the Trailblazer Mentorship Program. If you are looking for any opportunities to help pay it forward and be a mentor for a new entrant or somebody looking to potentially change their path within the ecosystem, whatever, go sign up to be a mentor. It is really an awesome program. Salesforce looks at your skill sets, aligns them with potential mentees and their skill sets. You meet a couple of times a month, and it's up to you to structure the cadence and the conversation. But it's a great way to give back. I've loved doing that this year. And then also the Idea Exchange prioritization. Last year, the Idea Exchange team came to Kansas City. If you were able to join that meeting, they are actively listening, and they actually just yesterday posted 4 new updates that are coming in the next handful of releases that I think a lot of you are really going to like. Think about change sets, think about address fields. So go out to that link and you can help start voting on the next round of ideas, but also see what is coming on the roadmap. There's also going to be a town hall on Tuesday to just talk about here's what the world is looking like right now. Chris, Leah, and Chris and Leah are all incredibly awesome, thoughtful leaders. I'm excited to hear what they have to say in this conversation that they're going to facilitate about just what Salesforce is doing in the world right now. What we all as members of the community have been able to do and give back. So if you're able to join that call Tuesday afternoon at 3:30, I highly, highly encourage it. Again, we're going to PDF this deck out, and you can get to those links to register and get more information. Summer 20 release milestones. Again, everything's changing. Target dates have changed, and they may still continue to be fluid. I don't know, but that's where things sit right now with Summer 20. And when in doubt, you can always go to status.salesforce.com, not only for what's your instance doing right now, but what do future maintenances, releases, all of that look like. Certification maintenance exams, the renewal deadlines have been suspended. Don't not do them, but the deadlines have been suspended for now just because of everything that's going on. And for all the updates, I highly recommend going to this group here. I know it's hidden behind the new Summer 20 logo with Astro, but this will be clickable once we PDF it out. And I would say with how many posts they do a day, if you haven't already joined the group, set your settings to daily digest. Every post is a bit much, but weekly you're going to miss out on something. All right, my favorite slide. Do we have anybody joining our group for the first time?
I'm joining for the first time.
Hi, what's your name and who are you with?
My name is Berger Solanki. I'm the exec director at Kansas City Free Eye Clinic. We're a very small nonprofit, and we help low-income homeless folks in town get eye exams and glasses so they don't lose their vision.
Very awesome. Thank you for joining us, and that's an awesome cause. Very nice.
Thank you. Been wanting to join for a while. Never could make it in person to Overland Park, so this is great.
Great. I don't like the circumstances, but I'm glad that we were able to make this happen for you. Seeing a lot of people pop up in the chat. Awesome. We love having everybody. So thank you again. If this is your first time, this is a safe place. It does not matter if you've been in the ecosystem for 15 years or 15 minutes, if you have 0 certifications, if you have 20, whatever. We are all here to learn and help each other. So welcome.
Oakland, California. That's got to be the farthest away that we have on the call. Welcome, Cynthia. It's incredible.
Very nice. Thank you.
Chicago.
All right. I'm going to guess the job market's a little bit weird right now, but any new roles or jobs or openings?
Oh, well, I can talk about one real quick. It's not formal yet, but it's going to be soon. At Academy Bank, I am losing my counterpart on the Encino side, and so I am going to be looking for somebody in a Salesforce admin role, one sort of role to help me out. We're building a very small but mighty Salesforce team over there. So I will definitely be sure to post more details in the group. But if you want to ping me in advance on LinkedIn, feel free.
Very good, very good. Matthew, congratulations. Saw your chat pop up there. Certifications. This is my favorite of the favorite. So who took, who passed, who failed, who's studying? And if you failed, it's okay because we love celebrating the opportunities to pass. Scott passed 201, the admin, awesome. Daniel, Sales Cloud. Daniel, you're killing it, bud.
How many is that for you now, Daniel? Oh, Lindsay, nice.
Lindsay working on Sales Cloud, nice. Matt passed admin, awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I failed and passed Community Cloud and then proceeded to fail PD1. And then 2 hours later, Johnson County Community College, where I took the exam, shut down. So, woo.
You stunk it up so bad they had to close the community college, huh?
Exactly. So before we get to the next slide where we talk about some study opportunities, if you did not see any of the announcements, online proctoring has suspended the requirement for a second webcam. In normal times, you had to have like the one right up here and then one like several feet away so that they could see that you were in a sterile environment. They've suspended the requirement for the time being. So I highly, highly encourage if you have plans to take a certification, sign up as soon as possible. I know that as I've been trying to sign up, slots are tight because they do actually have somebody proctoring on the other end silently through the webcam. So it's not like you can just say, hey, I'm going to take a test right now and go take it. You do have to sign up for it. So be very deliberate with your planning with that, but you don't have to have a second webcam. Terry, I saw you were on here. You want to talk about what you're starting up here in the next few weeks?
Sure. My name's Terry. I'm the group leader for the admins in Des Moines, Iowa. And last fall, we had done a admin certification study group for our team that was wildly successful. And we had several people get their admin certification. My co-leader, Carla, and I are looking at starting up another study group for the platform app builder. And this time around, we wanted to include our neighboring groups. So you are one of our neighbors. And so we wanted to invite you to participate in that. So if any of you are interested in the platform app builder, certification, you are welcome to join our group. I'll put I actually have posted in your community group that link as well, so you're able to get to that link and sign up if you're interested. The way that we work these is that I anticipate that it'll be about 12 to 13 weeks. We take the study guide and kind of divide it into different sections, and we do kind of a round robin like study. So you'll get an assignment to present on a given topic, and you share that with the group. And generally every week we'll get through about 3 or so of those topics. And at the end of the process, we'll go through kind of a Q&A to test your skills and see how close you are to being ready. You don't have to take the certification if you don't want to. If you're just interested in learning more about the platform app builder topics, you're welcome to participate in that. But we would love to have you join us. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.
Very cool. Thank you, Terry. And yep, thank you for posting that in our group. And again, we'll have this in the slide deck after as well. Terry and Carla are 2 of my favorite people in the region. So you cannot go wrong being in a group with them.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then Daniel, going back to you just absolutely killing it because of certification days. Definitely everybody check this out. They've extended the certification days. Daniel, you want to take 1 minute and just talk about your experience with this?
Sure. I'd love to. I think the one that helped me the most was the advanced admin, but you just log into these webinars and they coach you on not only what the material is that you're going to be tested on, but they prepare you for the test. They say, if you see a question like this, what we're really looking for is this. Some of them have test answers, test questions that are saying you're going to see a question that looks like this. And it's not quite word for word, but it's close. It's pretty close. So it really preps you for how to pass the test. I've been on 3 webinars and passed 3 certifications. I would give credit because of the webinar. They're very helpful.
And which awesome. Very, very many congratulations. Also, this piece right here, everybody, the $100 discount off a $200 exam. Even more motivation.
That's always important too.
Right. Thank you, Daniel. All right, to the agenda. So we're going to hand it off to Mr. SteveMo here in a minute, and then Jeff is going to talk about how Academy Bank is adapting to all the things today. And then we'll see where we are time-wise, and we're going to play it as audience choice. If we do an open office hours, if we do a Q&A, however we want to do it. But first and foremost, we're going to do Steve and Jeff. So if you don't know SteveMo, he's been an MVP since 2010. I believe that's the original class. Power of Us Hub Hall of Fame in 2019, Trailhead Ranger 2019. I'll let him talk about his college experience. Self-taught admin since 2003. I'll let him talk about his world record holder status as well. I'm going to also say he owns a garment of clothing that was worn by the one and only Macklemore, and I have video to prove it. But self-taught admin, pseudo developer, husband, dad, LGBT ally, rescue dog owner, animal lover. Not so much venomous snakes, I guess. Formula Ninja, Hophead. Seriously, if we get to go back to San Francisco, buy him a Pliny the Elder and he'll be your best friend forever. Stand-up comic, I swear he is. And multi-time Dreamforce presenter. I've had the privilege of presenting with him a couple of times. I think I've said enough. I'm just going to say, Mr. Steve Molis, please take it away.
Thanks, Dale. So let me present my screen here. Can everybody see my screen? My first slide? Sorry.
We sure can.
All right. Thanks, Dale, for the introduction. My name is Steve Molis, or if you remember the Trailblazer community, you may know me as SteveMo. And if you're not a member of the Trailblazer community, I strongly encourage you to join. There's just a great resource to learn about the platform if you're just jumping into it. There's Trailhead. Chris Duarte's team is doing some amazing work with Trailhead modules. There's the Answers community. There's the Idea Exchange. Just tons of great stuff all over the Trailblazer community. So, as Dale mentioned, tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a Salesforce MVP like Dale, Power of Us Hall of Fame member, Trailhead Ranger. And yes, I did not close Bunker Hill Community College, but I'm a community college dropout, otherwise known as daycare for 18 to 24-year-olds. I'm a self-taught Salesforce admin. I've been with Epsilon for 25 years, and back in 2003, I was in a meeting, and my boss pointed at me and said, we're getting this thing called Salesforce, and we're going to learn it, and then you're going to own it. And I've been the lead admin, developer, analyst, whatever they need ever since then. And yes, I am a world record holder. I hold the world record for the most times the speaker at Dreamforce has dropped the F-bomb during their presentation. The previous record was 0, held by every other Dreamforce speaker before and since. So with that, Salesforce has said that I need to have my own safe harbor slide. I will try to keep it PG-13 because, or actually rated G because my daughter Millie is here home with us. So I want to share some of my favorite formulas and just like what I call admin life hacks that I've just developed over the years. So this is not a formula I want to share with you. This is hands down the most complex formula that I have ever written in my life. Somebody years ago posted a question on the Answers community asking for a formula that would calculate the percent of business days remaining in the current month so that they could do prorated invoicing. And so this is the formula I built. And it is hands down the biggest, most complex formula I've ever written. And next to it, that is not a Photoshop. That's a real thing. That is a Victorinox Swiss Champ VATX. It's got 84 blades. It costs $450, and it weighs nearly a pound. Now this is the power of one. I didn't create this formula. This was created by a guy named Tom Tobin, who used to work for Salesforce. And this, in my opinion, is the most powerful, greatest formula ever written. I use it on every single object in my org, every single report in my org, and next to it is my favorite pocket knife. It opens bottles of beer, it opens bottles of wine, and I use it every single day because I'm a Salesforce admin. And what I want to show you is not those one-off niche formulas. I mean, how many people need to do prorated invoicing, calculating the percent of business days remaining in the current month? One of you, two of you. I'm going to show you formulas that you can use every day in your org, whether you're on Lightning or Classic, whether you're a nonprofit or a for-profit, whether you're on Unlimited Edition or Group. These formulas will work on nearly every single standard or custom object. Nearly every single one of them references a standard field on the opportunity, case, or lead. These are formulas that you'll be able to plug and play right into your own org, little tips and tricks that you can take home and use no matter what your org, no matter what your business model. So I'm going to show you how to use some basic math to simplify some complex formulas, how to create a simple formula field that will allow you to have dynamic report filters, a formula field that will return the ultimate parent account in a multi-level account hierarchy so you can do summarized sales pipeline reports for an entire organization. A formula will dynamically count the number of days until the opportunity close date for dynamic reports and dashboards. And then a simple trick that I came up with for testing validation rule formula logic. So let's step into our first formula. So this one came from a guy named Bart Ward, and he posted a question on the Answers community. He was trying to build a validation rule that would prevent his users from moving an opportunity back to a previous stage in the sales process. See, for his organization, the stages were like milestones. A deal could only move forward to its inevitable closure as a win or a loss. It could never go backwards. A deal couldn't be cultivated, then prospected, then proposals submitted, and then go all the way back to cultivation or prospecting. A deal could only move forward to closed won or closed lost. So he needed a validation rule to block that. And you actually see in his question, he posted his first attempt at writing that validation rule. And he was using a function called isPickVal. Now, the solution I came up with uses a function called case, a function called prior value, and a less than mathematic operator. So if you've never used the isPickVal function, its purpose is to evaluate a pick list field, look for a value that you provide, and then return a result or perform an action that you specify based on that value. So it's like if you had Alexa and you said, Alexa, are there zombies outside? Okay, run. Alexa, is it hot outside? Okay, let's go to the beach. Now you can see that it's not the most efficient function because you have to keep writing another isPickVal for every single value that you're looking for. But his opportunity sales process had 17 unique stages in it. I got on an Excel spreadsheet in my calculator and I figured out he would have to have over 150 isPickVal comments to cover every possible combination of stage and previous stage. I guarantee he would have either exceeded the compile size limit, the character limit, or died of carpal tunnel syndrome. So there's another function out there called case. And case behaves much the same way as is pickval, but you can see it's much more efficient. It's like you bring your list of conditions and list of results all to Alexa at once and just say, Alexa, what's it like outside? And based on what she says, it does what you want. So here is the formula that I wrote. Using a case function, I was able to basically convert each of the stages from the first to the last into a number. I assigned a 1 to qualification. Now I consolidated this formula because I couldn't even fit all 17 stages in on a single PowerPoint slide. So I shrunk this one down a little bit. But I'm basically assigning a numeric value to each of the stages. Now I made closed won and closed lost both equal to 6 because they are the last stage. Then I literally copied and pasted the case statement that I wrote back into the same formula. But around my second case function, I inserted a prior value function around the stage pick list field. So I'm returning the previously selected stage and turning that into a number. And then in between my two case functions, I just inserted a less than operator. Now I may have flunked out of community college, but even I know that 1 is less than 2, 3, and 4, and 2 is less than 3, 4, 5, and 6. Simple formula using some basic math. And here's the thing, this same question has come up again and again in the answers community, but with slightly different requirements. Somebody posted a question about trying to write a validation rule that would block users from skipping over stages. I took this exact same validation rule, I changed my less than operator to a greater than operator, and at the end of my last case function, I simply added a +1, meaning that if the currently selected stage is more than one stage higher than the previous stage, the user is blocked from saving the record, all using basic math. Now, this next formula, this came up from another question that was posted on the answers community by Margaret Manor, and she was trying to count the number of things that were selected in a multi-pick list field. Now, I have a confession to make about multi-pick list fields. I think that they're good at 3 things: allowing users to select one or more things from a list of options, sucking, and I can't remember what the third one is. But as much as I hate them, even I have them on my own org. As an admin, I only have so much sway over what does and doesn't get into my org. So you're going to have to create multi-pick list fields, and users select things in multi-pick list fields. And one day you're going to have to get the count of things that are in that multi-pick list field. But the problem is that the values in a multi-pick list field are just stored as a lump of semi-comma delimited text that you cannot parse. So the solution I came up with was I used a if function, a function called includes, which behaves much like, it's almost like is pickval's multi-pick list cousin, and then a plus operator. So here's the formula I wrote. I created a custom formula field on the object, and I selected number as my result. And here's my formula. I open up an if statement. Now, if you've never written an if statement, it works on the if then else principle. It looks for a condition that you specify. If that condition is found, it does something. If the condition is not found, you tell it what else to do. If then else. So I open up an if statement. I use the includes function to query that multi-pick list field, and I look for the first value in the menu. If I find it, I return a 1. If I don't, I return a 0. Then I close that if statement out. Then I add a plus operator, and I open up another if statement, includes, go back to the multi-pick list field, and I look for the second option in the menu. If I find it, I return a 1. If not, I return another 0. Then I close it out and add another plus sign. Then I go through all of the options in the multi-pick list menu. Because remember, as an admin, you can see the entire list of options that are available. I assign a 1 or a 0 to each one of them if it's been selected. And I simply add up all of those 1s and 0s. And now I can get the count of things selected. And this same formula, this same logic, it can be used a number of different ways. Maybe you've got a multi-pick list field that's got like 15 options in it, but you want to limit the maximum number of things that a user can select. You could take this exact same formula, put in a validation rule, and simply add a greater than operator to the end with the maximum number of values that you want to specify. Now the user can pick any 5 things, or 4 or 3 or 2 or 1 from that multi-pick list field. But if they try to pick 6 or more, they're blocked from doing it. Or maybe you have a process where if somebody picks 3 or more things from your multi-pick list field, they qualify for expedited shipping or a discount or special handling. Maybe you need to fire off a workflow or a lightning process with an email alert or apply a discount or something like that. You can take this exact same formula, couple of tweaks, and you can do all that using, again, just nothing more than basic math and some basic functions. So before I go on to the next slides, does anybody have any questions about either of those formulas before we jump on to the next topic? Anyone? Anyone?
You're so good at explaining things, Steve. Nobody has any questions.
Nailed it.
That's right.
Okay, so next I'm going to show you how to do some dynamic report filters. And again, nearly all these formulas that I'm showing you, they all came about from answers that people posted in the success community. This next one came from a question posted by Sophie Curtis, and on her org, they had a process where people would create activities and then assign them to other users, but they would then need to follow up on what the status of those activities were. But if you've ever created a report, whether it's an activity report, a lead report, accounts, opportunities, contacts, whatever, you'll notice that there's those menus at the top in the report builder. And one of the options is my accounts, my leads, my activities, my opportunities. The me in my is the user ID of the person who is logged in at that moment in that session. And what Salesforce is doing, it's comparing that user ID to the user ID that is in the record owner field. The me and my is the record owner. But what Sophie was trying to do was do that for the person who created the activity. They were no longer the owner of the activity. And she wanted to do one report that any one of her users could run at any time and check back on the status of their created activities. And she wanted to do it with one report. She didn't want to have to create a report, then clone it and change the filter to created by equals Mo, clone it, created by equals Larry, clone it, created by equals Curly, clone it, created by equals Shemp. She wanted one report that anyone could run at any time. And it would mimic that my activities filter, but the me and my being the creator of the record. So if you've ever created a formula, whether it's a validation rule, formula field, you'll notice that in the menu, when you insert a field, there's the object with the list of fields in the object at the top. But down below it, there are all these things with dollar signs. Those are called global variables. And one of them is $user. What $user is the user who is currently logged in that session. If we were all on the same org, and I'm logged in and I'm creating a record, I'm $user. Mike is in the same org. He's looking at the same record after I hit save. He's $user. Dale is running a report and my record shows up in that report. Dale is $user. We are all $user when we're logged into Salesforce. So what I'm doing is I created a formula field on the activity object. I returned checkbox as my result. And here's my formula. I'm simply comparing $user ID, the user in that session, and seeing if it is equal to the ID in the created by field. That's it. Now I can create a report or a list view, and I can display the owner and the created by and my formula checkbox field to validate that my formula is working. If I created the record, I see a checkbox, regardless of who owns the record. If I'm the owner, but I didn't create the record, the checkbox is unchecked. Now I can use this simple checkbox field as my report filter criteria. And whoever is looking at that report, they will only see the records that they created. And here's another thing. It doesn't have to be the created by ID field. This will work on any field that holds a user ID. It will work on last modified by ID, or it will work on any custom user lookup field. You can use this same technique. So this next one, again, came from a question posted by Kelly Knudsen, and she needed to create a report that would return the month-to-date sales and be able to compare the month-to-date sales for the current month to the month-to-date sales for all of the previous months, quarters, years, side by side. And she wanted to be dynamic. She didn't want to run the report on the 16th of the month, and then if she runs it the next day, have to change all of the filter criteria to include the 17th of the month. And then if she ran it the next day, edit all the filter criteria to include the 18th of the month and the 19th. And then at the beginning of the next month, have to reset the whole thing again and again and again. She wanted this report to be dynamic. She just wanted to pull up the report any day, any week, any month, and have it automatically return the result she wanted. So the functions that I used were a function called day, a function called today, and a less than or equals to operator. So if you've never used the day function, what it does is it evaluates a date field or a date value, and it returns the number of the day. Doesn't care about the month, doesn't care about the year. All it does is it returns the number of the day. And there's another function called today. And what today does is it returns the year, month, day of the current date. So if an opportunity had a close date of December 25th, 2019, day wrapped around close date is going to return the number 25. Today would return April 16th, 2020. Day wrapped around today will return the number 16. So I created a simple formula field on the opportunity object, and I'm returning again a checkbox result. And here's my formula. I'm comparing the day of the close date to the day of today. And if the day of the close date, regardless of what month it is, regardless of what year it is, if the day of the close date is less than or equal to the day of the current date, it's going to return a checked checkbox. If the day of the close date is after today's date, no matter what day it is, no matter what month it is, no matter what year it is, it's going to return an unchecked checkbox. Now, the cool thing is when you create a custom field, that field is now available in every single standard report type of that object, including any existing reports that you have built on that object. So you've got a sales pipeline report that you built 2, 3, 4 years ago. You edit that report, your shiny new month-to-date checkbox field is right there in a field list, available to grab and drag in and use as a report filter. So now your report filter is simply Is the checkbox field checked? Checkbox equals true. You apply the checkbox as a report filter. Now you run your report. I ran this report on the 10th day of the month. I can see month by month the sales for the first 10 days of the month by month. If I ran this report today, it would show the first 16 days of the month, side by side, regardless what month it is, what week, what year. And a little cool thing I stumbled onto, I actually built this for Kelly, but I deployed it in my own org, and I was playing around with it one day. And instead of applying it as a filter, I used it as a report grouping. So I wasn't excluding the stuff that happened after today's date. I was including it in the report, but I was using it to group my data. And doing that, you can do some trend analysis. Maybe you run this report, and if you're looking at the month-to-date sales, it looks like, wow, things are not doing so well. But you take it off as a filter and use it as a grouping, you can see like, well, actually, our sales are going up, but our customers' behavior is changing. They're making their purchases later in the month. Maybe I could use that information to control how we're doing our inventory control and stuff like that. You can take the same formula field and use it as a filter, as a report group, all kinds of cool stuff using a simple formula checkbox field. Does anybody have any questions? I can't see the little chat thing. So anybody have any questions about this formula or anything I've shown you so far, either like the use of the today function, the use of date and things like that?
I do have a question on that
Sure.
report filter with the created by user. Can you use that with role hierarchies? So if I created something, could I dynamically show that in a report to my manager?
So using, like, creating a custom...
Our use case is referrals. We're a bank, and so as my team is creating referrals as a manager, I want to be able to see those referrals that they've created to know that they're sending those over to the other business units. But by default, they're changing the owner on that referral.
In theory, you could. I'd have to open up the formula editor and see if via the created by user lookup field, if you can extract the role ID or the role name. In theory, if you can get a handle to it and compare those two things to each other, it would work. I don't know if it's physically possible to snake through the created by field and get that handle. I would need to play around with it.
Okay.
Definitely worth a shot. Definitely worth a shot. And if you couldn't do it via a formula field and you really need this, you could probably do something with a process or flow or workflow where on create, you write that value to a field on the record, and then you do your comparison from $user to that custom, text field, whatever it is. Like you just write the name or write the ID to a text field, and you're comparing $user role to the text field as your filter.
Okay.
Your logic is sound. Your logic is sound. I don't know off the top of my head if the capability to get there. I can hunch it. You can do it.
So I took Aaron's question down from the chat, and so Aaron, Steve, we'll make sure we get this solved. I've captured it as a item.
That would be a big one for us. Thank you.
All right. I was just doing it because that's what I do. And yes, it is possible. So you can reach through the created by and get to role, and then you can either leverage the role ID directly, which of course would be bad, or you can go through role and grab the role name or any other criteria or information from the role as well. So you're good.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Good one. And well, so if you can do that, and so if you need to have like a hierarchy, like, okay, everybody from this role down, if your roles are named with any kind of consistency, like Midwest regional SVP, and then there's a tree below them, but everything is prefixed with Midwest Regional, you in theory could say, all right, if the person looking at this report, their role begins with Midwest, and created by role begins with Midwest, that could be your criteria for your formula checkbox field.
Yeah,
And these can be hidden fields too. I mean, like some people like they don't like creating custom fields, and like you ask them why, and it's like the pushback is like, well, I don't want my page layout to be just like look like a race car at the Daytona 500 with all these stickers all over it. It's like they don't have to be.
Yeah.
You don't have to expose every single custom field on the record page layout to be able to pull them into a report. They don't even so it. As long as you're not pushing up against the custom field limit or anything like that, there's, and the thing is, like, if you really need this report, if the people, like, if there really is the benefit on the back end to the end user, then that's the justification for me. If this will make my users' lives easier, if this will make my life easier, so I don't have to jump through hoops to get them the report that they're asking for, that's the justification. Field limits aside. So are we good?
Yep.
We had one more follow-up
Sure.
From Leah. These are all applicable with a row-level formula in a report, right?
I think so. You can do a lot with row-level formulas. A big fan.
I think we're good to keep moving.
Okay, so next is this one I did not get from an answer that was a question that was posted on the answer scheme. They built this one on my own org. So much like the month-to-date formula that Kelly asked for, I was asked to build year-to-date sales pipeline reports where they wanted to compare where we are in the current year compared to the same time frame the last year, the last 2 years, the last 3 years. And so to do that, I used, again, our buddy, the today function. And the day function's got two brothers, or two siblings, year and month. And what year does is it goes into a date field or date value, and it extracts the year. Doesn't care about the month, doesn't care about the day. It just returns the 4-digit year of that date value. And there's another function called date, which you can use to manually or automatically build a date value. All you got to do is provide the 4-digit year, the 2-digit month, the 2-digit day numeric values, and you've got yourself a date value that you can use for comparison. So I use these three functions, and I use the same basic logic as I did for Kelly, but the thing is, I needed to count the number of the day within the year, not the number of the day within the month. Now, luckily for my organization, we're not on a custom fiscal year. So the year begins on January 1st. Now, to get the duration of anything or the day number of the year, you have to subtract the earlier date from the later date. Some people get a little bit, when they first get into date formulas, they instinctively, you see it written down. It's like, well, there's the start, a hyphen, and then the end. So that's my math. You actually got to flip them around. You're subtracting the earlier date, the lower number, from the later date, which is the higher number. So I've got to get the day number of the close date. So the close date, that's just inserting the close date field name. Now I've got to subtract January 1st of that year from the close date to get the duration. So I do that by using a date function to build my January 1st. Now January and the 1st, they're easy. I just hard code in 01 for January and 01 for the 1st of January. But I don't know what year this opportunity closed in. I've got 35,000 opportunity records in my org. My org goes all the way back to 2003. So I'm going to dynamically grab whatever year that record happened to have closed in using the year function. I'm just going to pull out that year, and that's going to complete my date. So now I can compare the close date of this opportunity to January 1st of that year. Then I do the same thing to calculate today's day of the current year. I use a date function to build my year. And again, every year starts on January 1st. If there's a custom fiscal year, you got to play around with this a little bit, but the same logic applies. So I use a date function. I insert 01 for January, 01 for the 1st, and I wrap a year function around today to pull out the year 2020. Now I'm just doing basic math and counting the number of days into the year that the opportunity closed and the number of days into the year that today is. Today, April 16th, 2020, is day number 107. If an opportunity closed on February 15th, no matter what year it was, that was day 46. If an opportunity closed on November 30th, that's day 334. So the opportunity that closed on February 15th, that's going to return a true checkbox because 46 is less than 107. The opportunity that closed on November 30th, that's going to return an unchecked checkbox. So again, all we got to do is second we hit save, that field is now available to use as our report filter. We drag it in, make it our filter criteria, and here's our report. I can see year by year, side by side, the sales for the first 4 months of the year going back to 2018. And if I run this same report without changing a single thing, I'll see the sales for the first 5 months, year to date. And no matter when I run this report will add whatever days have passed within the current year and pull in all the sales year to date. And in January, the whole thing's going to reset back to day one. I have never had to edit any of these report filters after implementing this formula checkbox field. Does anybody have any questions about the creation of that? You know, like it's a little bit more complicated than the one I did for Kelly because I had to actually build the whole date value for January 1st. But once you get the hang of it, it becomes like, you know, second nature. We're good? Going once.
I just want to comment, like, the thing that I love about these formulas is they are taking, okay, we've all been there, right? Where like you implement something and then you're 2 months down the road and now your manager comes to you with a reporting requirement that they didn't have and you were building it, right? And what I love about these is even though your org is 23 years old or whatever, you know what I mean? Like you can implement this today and still go back in time and see all of this data historically. Because it's just using the data that's already there, that's already been captured. So.
Exactly. The second you create a custom field, that field is available on every existing record of that object, no matter how many hundreds, thousands, millions, bazillions of those records you happen to have on your org. And they're available in any, it's not just they're available in that report type. They're available in any existing report. You could take a sales pipeline report that you built 5 years ago, and this new custom field is right there in the field menu on the left-hand side, available to be dragged and dropped. Drag it, drop it in, make it a report filter. Drag it, drop it in, make it a report grouping. Drag it, drop it in, display it in the report results. It's such a a game changer in terms of being able to, the ability to implement something like this. And then you never have to, you don't go back in that report a month later, a year later, and have to redo the date ranges, manually typing in, up to today's date, stuff like that. It's a lifesaver. So this next one, I call this one the ultimate parent account. And again, this is one that I built in my own org first, but I posted it in the success community, and it actually has come up a couple of times. So I had a requirement to build a consolidated sales pipeline report. But the problem is that in my org, we have account hierarchies. We use that that standard parent account field on the account object. And when you try to group an opportunity pipeline report using parent account, you get something that looks like this. If the account has no parent account and the report is grouped by parent account, you get this block of records that have a hyphen, because there's nothing in the parent account field. And if the account is the parent of a bunch of subsidiaries, it shows up in this empty block because it's the ultimate parent account. It has no parent itself. And also, the parent account field only goes up one level. So here, Octane Corporation is the parent of Lego and United Oil and Gas, but it is also the grandparent of the 3 United Oil and Gas subsidiaries, United Oil and Gas Singapore, UK, and US. And Warnham Hogg, it's the parent of Dunder Mifflin, for you Office fans. And so if you run this report, the revenue for Octane, it's scattered all over the place. And if you add a chart, that doesn't make it any better. You have to get out a calculator that's got blue, yellow, green, orange on it to add up all these stacks to get the true complete picture of the Octane Corporation sales pipeline. Now, I have a saying that if you built a report or a dashboard and whoever is looking at it needs to pull out a piece of paper and a pencil and a calculator, you built a crappy report. Now, I don't want to have builder of crappy reports on my resume. So how do we solve this problem? Because, there's all these account records in your org, and you don't know if that particular account is a parent or has a parent. You don't know if that account is a standalone company that has no parents and no subsidiaries. It's just a standalone account record. So to solve this, I got to give a shout out to a guy named Deepak Anand, or in my opinion, apologies to Tommy Touchdown, Tom Brady. He is, in the Answers community, the GOAT. Hands down, the absolute best I have ever seen, and I've seen a lot. If you've never been in the Answers community or don't know Deepak, just look him up and just look through his thousands and thousands of answers. His solutions are just so brilliant and so well thought out, and also so well explained. He really breaks down his process in a way that even I can understand. And so one day he solved a problem using a function called blank value. Now, I've written thousands of formulas. I saw blank value in the formula function menu, and I even read the online help and training description of what it does. I could not wrap my head around, what does this thing really do? How can I really use this thing? And so I just dropped it and left it by the side of the road. But then I saw Deepak solve a question using blank value, and he explained it so well, the light bulb went off. And I finally realized the power of this function. And so the way that blank value works, I'll try to do Deepak justice. If you point blank value at a field, and that field has something in it, it uses that thing. But if the field is empty, you are allowed to provide a substitute to use in that field's stead. You can either point it to another field or just provide another value. So like, you can't divide by 0. You break the laws of math. You could have a formula where you look at a field and you need to use that as your divisor, but that field might be empty on that particular record, and you don't want your formula to break. You could say blank value, look at this field. If there's something in it, then use it. But if it's blank, I need to continue on doing my math. So here, use this substitute to do the thing. That's the way that blank value works. So I created a custom formula field on the account object to return the name of the top account in the hierarchy. Now, I did some detective work before I did this, and I found that in my org, the highest level account hierarchy that I had was 3 tiers deep. So I built myself a buffer and I went 6 tiers up. So I used the blank value function and I created a formula field. And when I click that insert field button, as I mentioned earlier, it has the object at the top and then all the global variables underneath it. So I stepped into the account object and I found the parent account field. And wherever you see a field in the formula editor and you see a greater than sign next to it, that means that that field is a lookup. And you can step through that lookup field into that object. And so I went through the parent account and I found the parent account field on the parent account record. Then I stepped through that and I kept on stepping up and up and up and up and up. And I went 6 levels up and then I inserted the account name. But as I said before, I don't know if that particular account has a great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparent. So using blank value, I provided a substitute and I went up to the great-great-great-great-grandparent. But I don't know if this account has a great-great-great-great-grandparent. So I opened up another blank value inside of that and I went up and got the great-great-grandparent. Then I opened up another one and got the great-great-grandparent. Then I got the grandparent. And last, I said, all right, if this record has no great-great-great-great-great-grandparent, great-great-grandparent, great-great-grandparent, grandparent, then I must be on the top account in the hierarchy or there is no hierarchy. So simply return the name of this account. And again, second I hit save, my custom field is available in every existing opportunity pipeline report that I have. I grab my ultimate parent account name and I swap that for the parent account name in my report group. And this is the same report that we started with. But after swapping ultimate parent account for parent account, this is the same report. I can see all of the revenue for Octan all in one nice, neat pile. And without a piece of paper and a pencil, and without a calculator, I can see that the Octan pipeline has $6.9 million worth of revenue in it. And I can see that the Wernham Hogg Dunder Mifflin account hierarchy has $2.7 million in it. And also, looking at a report, now all my Octan corporate hierarchy revenue is all in one nice, neat stack. And so is Wernham Hogg. Oh, and the 3 standalone accounts, 3 Stooges, Initech, and Midstate Office Supply, they're no longer out there in this empty blank space on the report. Their account names have been shifted over to the ultimate parent account name. So it's one nice, neat grouping. Oh, and their revenue in the report chart, it's not in this one nameless, faceless stack. It's displayed with the account name, all using a simple formula checkbox, formula text field. Does anybody have any questions about the blank value function? I tried to do Deepak justice, but not, in all honesty, I can't. He thinks on another level. He sees things on another level. I mean, I cannot, you know. So some people make a big deal about all the questions I've answered and stuff like that, and it's like I'm like the 2014 Miami Heat version of Reggie God, I can't remember his name. Played for the Celtics. Ray Allen. That's it. You know, I've been around a long time. I got all these stats, but Deepak, he's Steph Curry. He's LeBron. He's Harden. He's on another level, and he is just sees things I can't see. I can't say enough about the guy. And if you ever meet him, he is the most humble, just the epitome of what a community member is and should be. He really is like just an incredible person. No questions on Ultimate Parent account, really. I thought the blank value.
Just a lot of love.
Yeah.
Just a lot of love. People are saying how awesome it is.
Minds are blown and faces are melting.
Yeah.
And I'll dump this all into a PDF and hand it off to Dale. So you'll be able to, you know, and like I said, nearly every single formula in this deck references a standard object field, whether it's opportunity, account, and you can be able to plug and play these things. And some of the ones that are like I've written for like opportunity close date, they'll work on case close date. They'll work on case status, weed status, with a couple of minor tweaks. So this last one, next to last one, sorry, if we have time. So this next one, I had to build on my own org. I needed to dynamically count the number of days until the opportunity close date, just so that we could see our rolling, upcoming, incoming sales pipeline. But also, I needed to see dynamically the lapsed overdue opportunities, what stage they were at, and how much money they were worth. So I needed to count the number of days until the opportunity close date, and I need to do it dynamically because the close date is always moving closer. Each day, another day ticks down. And for opportunities that are elapsed, every day they get further and further behind. So how did I do that? I created a custom formula field, and I used our old buddy, the today function. Now, as I said earlier, like today will return April 16, 2020. Tomorrow, the today function will return April 17th. The next day, April 18th. Now, if you've ever created a custom opportunity stage or edited an existing opportunity stage, you'll notice that the stage, it's not just a regular pick list field. When you create or edit a stage, Salesforce asks you a couple of additional pieces of information. What's the default probability of this stage? What is the default forecast category of the stage? And they ask you, what is the type of this stage? And that pick list menu has only 3 choices in it: open, closed won, or closed lost. Every stage, no matter how many stages you have, no matter how many sales processes you have, is either open, closed won, or closed lost. And what Salesforce does when you select that option, when you're setting up that stage, it sets 2 hidden checkbox fields called is closed and is won to true or false. When the user selects a stage that has been defined as open, it sets is closed to false and is won to false. When the user selects a stage, even if you've got a dozen stages that equal closed won, it sets is closed to true and is won to true. If the stage is equal to lost, it sets is closed to true and is won to false. And it does that automatically every stage, no matter how many stages you have. So I created a custom field on the opportunity object, and I returned a number as my formula result. And then I used a simple if then else function. I said, if is closed equal true, return nothing because the opportunity is closed. I don't want to count anything. But if it's not, then subtract today from the close date. And again, assuming that the opportunities are all in the future, as they should be, the open ones, the close date is later, should be later than today. So if the opportunity is closed, I return nothing or null. But if the opportunity has a close date of February 21st, my formula is going to return the number 5. If the opportunity is open and had a close date of April 7th, it's going to return the number -9. Now, a little tip. No matter how simple you think your formula is or how good you are at writing formulas, always create a report or a list view that shows the fields that the formula is evaluating and any supporting fields. And then include your formula field results side by side. And get out your calculator, get out your pencil, get out your calendar, whatever your formula is doing, and check your work. So looking at my report and my list view, I can see that the closed won and closed lost opportunities are returning nothing as I want them to do. If the opportunity close date is in the future, it shows the number of days until that close date. If the opportunity close date is in the past, it's returning a negative number. So I know my formula is sound. So now I grab my favorite opportunity report and I set the filter to opportunity status equals open. Then I create a report bucket. Now, if you've ever created a report bucket, you know that report buckets do not support date fields, but our formula is not a date. It is a number. and you can bucket by numbers. So I grab our days until close custom field, I use it as my report bucket, and I start building buckets in 30-day increments. I start with opportunities that have a days until close of greater or equal to -90. Then I work my way in, -90 to -60, -60 to -30, -30 to 0. Then I work my way out, 0 to 30, 30 to 60, 60 to 90, or greater than 90. Then I use that as a report grouping, and now I can see my entire sales pipeline in nice, neat buckets. What is in the upcoming pipeline and what is expired by the date range and by the stage and dollar amount. So looking at the right-hand side of the report, my upcoming pipeline, I can see that I've got $1.2 million that's supposed to close in the next 30 days. That's great, but I've got almost $200,000 that's still in prospecting and cultivation. Are those deals really going to pick up speed and close in the next 30 days? Maybe I need to reach out to those opportunity owners and get a more realistic expectation of that close date. Now, looking over at the left-hand side of the report, at the overdue, I can see that I've got 3 deals worth a little over $500,000 that is overdue. But, you know, some of it's in negotiation, some of it's in proposal. So maybe we just need to, you know, figure out what's going on with those negotiations, push the close date out a little bit, work on that proposal. But what really concerns me is this first stack on the far left. Those are deals that are over 90 days overdue. And I've got almost $1.2 million in it. Instead of checking in with the opportunity owner on the status of the opportunity, maybe I should be checking in on the well-being of that opportunity owner and poke them with a stick or check their pulse. And I did it all using a simple formula number field. So last up is it's not a formula field. It's a little, it's a little life hack that I came up with, or an admin hack. So if you've ever written a formula, whether it's a formula field, validation rule, whatever, in the formula editor, there's that little check syntax button at the bottom. And so you build your formula, you click the check syntax button. Hopefully you get the green message, not the red one. There's no syntax errors and merge fields or functions. Your parens and commas are all in the right place. Your compile size is under the 5K limit. You're good to go, right? Wrong. The check syntax button does nothing more than check the syntax of the formula. It makes sure that you're not using an incorrect function on a data type of a field, or you're missing a comma or missing a right or left paren. It does not check the logic of your formula. Now, I flunked out of community college, but even I remember from basic algebra that A plus B divided by C and A plus B divided by C, while they're both syntactically correct, the logic is different, and they could return different and potentially bad results. So how do we test the logic of a validation rule before we implement it and activate it? So validation rules are Boolean. Either a record passes the validation or fails the validation. Another thing that's a Boolean, oh, my slides aren't working. Sorry about that. There we go. Another Boolean in Salesforce is a checkbox. They're either true or they're false. They're either a 0 or a 1. Wax on, wax off. So I created a custom field on the object, and I've created this on every single object in my org. And you only need one of them. You don't need it for every single validation rule. It's just using it for like a one-time test of your logic before you deploy and activate that validation rule. So I created a custom formula field, and my result that I'm returning is a checkbox. Now, when you're writing a validation rule, you're kind of ironic that we're doing this during the whole COVID thing. You're basically like a doctor who's writing the test to see if a record has that condition, if it has that disease that you're trying to prevent, you're trying to cure. So a true result means that the record is bad, so you want it to fail. A false result means that the record doesn't have the condition you're testing for, and so it's good to go. It passes validation, and the user is allowed to save or create that record. So What if we wanted to create a validation rule to help prevent that user behavior that we saw in that report where people just, creating opportunities and then they never update the close date? So we want to create a validation rule that blocks a user from saving a record that is open with a close date in the past. Now, we don't want to enforce this validation rule on opportunities that are closed, though, because maybe we've got a process where after the deal is closed, the people in shipping have to put in the FedEx tracking number. Maybe we've got a process where after the deal is closed, the people in accounts receivable have to put in the invoice date or the payment date. Or maybe we've got a process where after a deal is closed, the support team needs to update the warranty information on that opportunity. If we enforce this rule simply when the opportunity close date is in the past, they're going to get an error message when they try to perform any of those tasks. So we want to exempt closed opportunities from this rule. So if the opportunity is closed and we don't care what the close date is, the record can be saved. But if the record is open and the close date's in the future, it passes. If the record is open and the close date is in the past, it fails. So some people might be thinking like, well, in that formula you showed earlier, you use that is closed, is one checkbox field. Why can't we use that? Well, I used to actually write formulas like this. Then I found out that Salesforce, in the validation rule formula tip sheet, there's a little entry. They strongly recommend that you do not use is closed or is one in a validation rule formula. They don't go into a full explanation of why, but they strongly recommend that you use stage name, or if you're working on a case validation rule, case status. My guess is that in the Salesforce order of operations, and there are something like 18 or 19 steps between clicking the new or edit button and clicking the save submit button and all the magic happening everywhere behind the scenes. My guess is that I think validation rules are somewhere down around step 13 or 14. And my guess is that when you click select a stage and hit save, the record passes through all of those 18 steps, and for a brief moment in time, the is closed and is one checkboxes have not been set. And so it will pass through the validation rule, and then after passing the validation rule, then those set fields get set. So you could have a record accidentally slip past the validation rule because is closed and is one have not been set by the order of execution. That's just my guess. But Salesforce says use stage, so I use stage. So let's try and write that validation rule. So first we want to check to see if the close date is less than today's date. We also want to check to see if the stage is not equal to closed won and not equal to closed lost. So this is how we would write it. Or use it if I'm an ands and or guy, but some people use ampersands and pipes, so you would write it like this. So we want to put this validation rule into production, activate it, but we want to do not only a test of our syntax, but our logic. So before we do that, we go to our formula checkbox field and we copy and paste in our formula. We click the check syntax button. We know that all of our commas and parens are all in the right place. Our functions are all good. So again, if this formula returns a true checkbox, that means that the record would fail our validation rule and the user would be prevented from saving the record. If the formula returns an unchecked checkbox, that means the record is good and will pass our validation rule. So we know that our syntax is sound. Let's check our logic. And we do that by creating a list view or a report that shows the fields that the validation rule is evaluating and our validation checkbox field side by side. So we go to our list view and we can see that we've got a problem. We've got 3 opportunities that are closed won and closed lost, and they have a checked checkbox. That means that if shipping or accounts receivable tried to edit these opportunities and update them, they'd be blocked from saving that record. but these records should be exempt from our validation rule. Does anybody want to take a guess as to like what is wrong with my validation rule formula that I wrote? Anyone want to take a crack at it?
Ors and knots.
We have a winner. Yes. Dale Ziegler, come on down. The problem is my ors. See, a field like stage or status, it's a single value pick list field. It can only have one value in it and one value alone when the user saves it. But by using an or in my formula, I actually created a loop from which the closed opportunities can never escape. They can never satisfy this validation rule. Because when the user selects closed won, they fail because they haven't selected closed lost. And if they select closed lost, they fail because they haven't selected closed won. Unless the user is Schrodinger's cat, in which case all bets are off. So how do we solve this? We remove the or. We wrap an and around the entire formula. And if the close date is less than today, and the stage is not closed won, and the stage is not closed lost, or using ampersands, writing it like this. Now, we go back to our formula checkbox field. We drop in our new formula. We check the syntax. Syntax is good to go. Then we go back to our list view, and we can see that the only records that have a checked checkbox are the two open opportunities that have a close date in the past. Now we are confident that not only is our syntax sound, but our logic is sound, so we can go and click that active checkbox on our validation rule in production. Now, there are a few caveats to this. Not every function that is available in a validation rule is available in a formula field. So you can't use is new, is change, prior value, or VLOOKUP. If your formula doesn't have any of those functions, you can drop the whole thing right into the formula checkbox field to test your logic. If it does, you'll have to comment that line out of the formula checkbox field and play around with a little bit, but you can validate the rest of your logic. You just can't use any of these four functions in your formula checkbox field. Some additional resources to check out. I can't say enough about the incredible job that Chris Duarte and her Trailhead team have done. I mean, Mike, how many modules have they got now? 700? I know it's over 6.
It's over 7, if not getting close to 8.
Actually, a good way to check is to just log on to Jen Lee's profile and see how many badges she has. So Jen Lee's a fellow Bostonian, fellow MVP, and she is she's many things, including being an awesome person. She is just the Trailhead module beast and the queen of flow and process automation. Just a great person. And so, does anybody have any questions about? I mean, I know I showed you a lot, and I ate up the better part of your day. But if anybody has any questions, feel free to shoot me an email, and I'll try to get back to you. And like I said, I'll have the deck available to Dale as a PDF for you to download. So if nobody has any questions, thanks a lot for having me.
Steve, we love you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. It was awesome.
All righty. So yeah, Steve's going to share his deck with me. You can find him on Twitter at SteveMo Force, or just go to the answers community, and he's going to be blazing through answers. You can get him in any number of places. So, Jeff, Mr. Berger,
Yeah.
you want to tell us what Academy's up to?
Yeah,
Through these crazy
absolutely.
times?
Yeah. Just All right, Steve, if you've ever Googled a Salesforce report blank blank blank, you're going to get something with Steve's answers on it. I definitely saw myself reporting on the back of Steve's Trailblazer community answers. So thank you, Steve. Yeah, of course. So I want this to be, I definitely want this to be more of a discussion. I'm going to like go first to try to, inspire people. But we all know how powerful Salesforce is. We know how flexible it is. And as all of our worlds have turned upside down, we've all had to adapt, and our businesses have had to adapt. And Salesforce is great. It's virtual. You can do it anywhere you have internet. And so I can imagine that a lot of the folks that are on this call have been asked by people in their organization, by managers or VPs or whatever, to bring things into Salesforce that maybe haven't existed there before, or to augment existing processes with Salesforce functionality. Obviously, as somebody who works at a bank, we had this entire paycheck protection program, loan program kind of fall out of the sky with the CARES Act. A little bit of background for those of you who are not in banking. Part of the CARES Act was a program, a loan program that was going to be available to businesses. The idea behind this was that the Small Business Administration was going to set aside, I think the number was like $340 billion. And companies could apply through banks who were approved SBA lenders to get a chunk of change so that they could turn around and continue to pay their employees, even though those employees might not be working right now if that business is closed. If you run a restaurant, or if you run some sort of entertainment venue, or all sorts of businesses are closed of various types across the country, and we're trying to keep these people employed. So I got a call, let's see, the application went live Friday night. I got a call Saturday afternoon to say, hey, we need some help reporting on this stuff. Our teams are storing everything in folders on the shared drive and moving them between folders to count as stages. Can you report on what's in those stages on the P drive? And I said, no, I can't. But what I can do is I can build a whole paycheck protection program application process within Salesforce, and we can start doing our work there and tracking everything there. So again, I hope to share a little bit about something that we did in a very short period of time, highlight some of the kind of things that are cool about Salesforce that make it really easy to stand something up like this. And I hope that while I'm talking, other people are getting inspired to maybe share something cool that they built over the past couple of weeks to help their organization. And I'd love to, after I talk a little bit, get some other folks on here sharing their orgs and what they've got going on. So let me share my content. Okay.
And if anybody's not able to unmute, I am looking at chat, so feel free to put anything
Cool.
in there too.
So this is a PPP application. On our website, academybank.com, we had an application that could be completed. That application's down now because the initial money ran out. But this is a company called Alexius Solutions, and we had an application that got created and dropped into a database. I used dataloader.io and worked with my IT team to set up a secure FTP link so that I could suck in that application data every 30 minutes and get it put into Salesforce so we could stop dumping it into folders on the P drive. And from there, it was all about custom fields. So I used my fair share of formula fields. It started with basically replicating the fields on the application. But of course, that's never enough. We had to create a process around it. So we had to create stages. Those stages have certainly changed over time. You can see there are many stages, many more than I would like, to be candid. But when you're building something in a day and then augmenting it on the fly, and maybe even doing it directly in production, although I would never admit to that.
So, super quick, since you are in production, do you want me to stop recording?
No, that's okay. It's fine. I've got clearance. We're good. So we've got stages here And we needed to track basically a process where an application came in, it was going to get picked up by a group of underwriters. We didn't want to assign directly to underwriters, so thank you queues and queue assignments. For those of you who don't use queue assignments for things like this, you're making a mistake. I love queues. Then the application was going to be underwritten. It was going to be internally approved. Then we were going to have another group of folks pick it up and actually submit it to the SBA. Once SBA approved it, we were going to process that loan, which basically is a fancy word for doing a bunch of paperwork manually because there's a lot of forms to fill out, and nobody gave me any time to set up any form gen solutions. So here we are. And then we had to get those documents out to the customer for signing, and then eventually say, okay, we've got the documents back, we're ready to fund this, we're going to fund it, we're going to book it. There's some reasons why we might need some other statuses, denied, withdrawn, on hold, et cetera, pretty standard stuff. I want to talk about the queues. So I leveraged queues kind of at each key checkpoint. The thing that's been really interesting about this is it's very much been all hands on deck, right? We had a very short window of time, basically 10 days is what it ended up being, 10 or 11 days, between when the application window opened and when the money ran out. So I got a ton of new users brought in and had to get them set up very quickly. And the way that we've been handling that is with queues for our PPP underwriters group, our SBA group, our processors group, our funders group, right? People who are not used to Salesforce need one single list to go to and take action. And so again, queues are just incredible for that. Highly, highly recommend it. Another thing that I wanted to talk about that I think has been really cool, again, imagine, all hands on deck. We've got to have communication with these borrowers, and a lot of that communication, especially for these smaller businesses, is going to happen at the branch level. Going to happen with personal bankers. And at Academy Bank, our personal bankers, our retail bankers, don't have access to Salesforce today. So one of the things that I got asked was, okay, Jeff, probably 3 or 4 days in when we really started to get volume going, all right, now I need you to set up a thing where you're going to run a report every 30 minutes and export it and then post it on the intranet so that the retail bankers can go get it. And they can figure out what the status is of these loans so that they can communicate back to the customers, the borrowers, about what's going on. That sounded terrible to me, having to run and export a spreadsheet every 30 minutes. So what I did instead was I leveraged the power of communities. Did I have time to set up a legitimate community? No. Did I have time to understand really even how communities worked? No, not really. But I learned a long time ago about the power of the guest user license and the ability to leverage Salesforce sites to do some IP, locking down of access, right? So I could do this cool thing where I could create a link right here on the intranet so that employees could go in and see all of the applicants that were out there, all those retail employees who don't have Salesforce access, but as guest users, they can see, they can't take action on any of this stuff, right? But when a guy walks up to your counter and says, hey, I've got a loan with you guys that's supposed to be in process, what's going on, right? They can quickly jump in here, search this list, find out what the status is. And that has been really a game changer and an eye opener for the organization. It's not something I want to do long term. It is not really the best way to have that information be shared, and nor is it, it doesn't allow them to take action on that information. So I've actually already started the conversations because of this. What it would take to stand up an employee community where we can actually have authentication and real users, real retail users in that employee community, so that they can start taking action on these records or records like this in the future. And we're really excited to be exploring that. The new community builder is so great, having implemented some of the CMS sort of functionalities. So check that out. But this was so simple, guys. It was create a new community, drop a list component on it, make sure your list and your guest user profiles are set up so that your retail users aren't seeing anything they shouldn't see, and post the link. So this was really something that I was proud of, that I could stand up quickly and have our retail folks gain really valuable access. And most importantly, be able to answer the client's questions, right? Everyone's concerned about, am I going to get the money that I need to continue to pay my employees? And being able to have the retail folks be able to, in seconds, give an answer to somebody and not say, oh, well, you got to call the banker who's working it or blah, blah, blah. I thought that was really, really valuable. When it comes to other kind of key things that I did that I just want to share, just again, kind of highlighting the power of the platform. I, like Steve, love my reports, but I think I love dashboards even more. And something that was really important to the folks as soon as we started to get volume in was, oh my God, where is everything and what kind of velocity do we have? So a couple of tips that I want to share, just things that, it's easy to forget, which is things I found myself doing when I was standing up a new object. It's like, man, you should really just do this every time. Kind of how SteveMo creates his power of one on every object, right? If you've got anything with a stage or a status, just go ahead and every time you update that stage or status, put a timestamp field that goes with that stage or status and start capturing it immediately as soon as you implement that stage. So create a process builder, make that process builder be based off of the stage change. I'll actually just show that real quick. Just stage is change. Don't be weird and make separate nodes for each stage change unless you need to do other things. You can accomplish this all with a single node. So, and keep it to one process builder per object. I know I didn't, but I'm cleaning it up still. So you just say, hey, when the stage has changed, then go do this stuff, right? Doesn't matter what stage is changing from or to. And then in your immediate actions, when the stage equals underwriting, then update the move to underwriting timestamp with now, and so on for every single one of your stages. Because the management team won't think of it day 1, but they'll definitely think of it day 10, and they'll sure as heck think of it day 30. What happened? Who did well? What was our velocity? Who was slacking and did stuff, didn't do enough stuff, and so on. So just start capturing that right away. And it lets you create really cool reports like this, which is a velocity report, which just shows how many apps moving from the underwriting stage to approval over time. This was really critical because we're trying to make sure the resources are available. And so understanding, okay, we've got this many apps coming through the pipeline at this stage. That means we're going to have this many apps hitting processing over the next 2-3 days. So what are we going to do there? So just a pro tip, if you got anything with a stage or status, create those timestamps right away and start capturing them from day 1. The other thing that you always want to do from day 1, even if nobody asks you for it, just do it anyway, is set up the history tracking. You got to set up history tracking right away. And in particular, you got to set it up on owner, and you got to set it up on things like stage and other key fields, because they won't ask you day 1, but they will ask you day 10 or day 30. Hey, so now I need to see a report of everybody who actually completed the underwriting task. And when you've got queues involved and you've got a lot of ownership changing happening because you've got an application that's touching a lot of people's desks over time, that's a little tricky to report on. So day 1, turn on that history tracking. If you don't know how to do that, come in here, say set history tracking on your object, and make sure that your key fields are selected. I always recommend owner because everyone always wants to know who's doing the work, right? And then I recommend other things like stage or other key fields that might change or that are critical, because the last thing you want is somebody coming to you and saying, hey, somebody changed this value, or this value isn't what I thought it was going to be. Why did this change? And you're not able to tell them because you're not capturing that history. So use your common sense as you're standing stuff up. Key things like amounts or account numbers or things like that that are really important. Just go ahead and flip that field history tracking on right away, because you never know what kind of reporting requirements you're going to get later. And management never really thinks about the fact that, like, if I give you a reporting requirement today for something like this, that means I can't actually start reporting on it for like 30 or 60 or 90 days, depending on the field, because we won't have enough good data to report on. So just protect yourself and look like a really awesome admin by turning on that history tracking day one, and making sure that you've got that stuff captured when they inevitably ask.
So we had a question in the chat about, does anybody know how many fields you can turn on history tracking without having to pay for an upgrade? It is 20 per object.
Yep.
Going back to reporting on that field history tracking, something that actually bit me on a client like 2 weeks ago, so super recent, is if your object is a child of a master detail relationship,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
you cannot report on it.
Yep.
I cried a little.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah.
Now, in that instance, I know one of the things I've done is use, this is a little complicated, but you do what you got to do. Set up the feed tracking on that object, so on that child object, and then make sure that on the parent object you also have feed tracking set up, and then enable the field tracking on the related objects. And what that, it's not great, but like if you need something on there, you can get it this way in a roundabout way with some chatter feed and chatter feed comment type reports, which is really scary, and probably way more complicated than what we want to get into right now. But point is, if you've got something like account where you've got child, way down here at the bottom, you've got this little checkbox that says you can also display feed activity for related objects, and say all related objects. And this actually creates a connection between that child object's feed elements and the parent object of that parent-child relationship. So you can, at a minimum, see it on the object, which is really cool and important. And then when you go run your reports in the background, feed comments for that, or not feed comments, but I don't remember the API name of that. You can get some of that information, but yeah, it's not perfect. Child objects are kind of a pain.
Right. And field history tracking in general now being capped out, is it 18 to 24 months? If your org is so young, if your org was turned on in 2016 and you stood on your head while doing it, they only track it for 18 to 24 months. Otherwise, it's still forever. But just be mindful of how old your org is and how far back it'll track without having to come up with a custom solution.
Yeah.
As a general rule, go ahead.
Another little gotcha or caveat to field history tracking reports is that the values in the field history are all stored as text. So if it's a date field, it's not. It's not. You can't interrogate it in the report the way that you could a date using like this month, last week, whatever. It's whether the source field was date, currency, number, checkbox, whatever. All the historical values are all stored as date, so you gotta tweak them. Another like favorite report suite of mine that is, I don't know why it's not shouted from the rooftops. Opportunity historical trend reporting, that is like, that's the shit. That if you've never done a historical trend reporting, it's available right out of the box on our opportunities cases. Do it on any custom object. I don't know, like Dale raised a great point about the master detail relationship with field history tracking. I don't know if there's any master detail limitation, but it's awesome because you can, in those, you can do that comparison, like, is the dollar amount in this field not equal to what the dollar amount in this field was a week ago, a month ago, 2 months ago? Just some great stuff.
Yeah, totally. And generally speaking, Dale, to go back to your point about history tracking and the limitation on time. Like, look, Salesforce is great, and it's great at a lot of stuff. What Salesforce is not great at is storing a bunch of historical data and reporting on it over time, right? So if you're a bank, for example, Salesforce is not going to be the place where you're going to want to do that long tail financial sort of analysis, right? Like, invest in another tool, invest in Einstein Analytics or Tableau or something that can be the long-term home for that data, because Salesforce is not it, right? Even with activity tracking, it stores the data, but like, it falls off reports after a certain period of time. So just generally speaking, or Daniel, reporting snapshots. Yes, now there's some limitations with reporting snapshots, with the number of records that you'd include in a particular snapshot. That's one limitation, but yes, reporting snapshots, another great option for that historical reporting. Steve, any comments on snapshots? I know that's not exactly, I don't know. Do you leverage reporting snapshots?
Oh yeah. I just rolled one out for one of our subsidiaries. It was the only way they needed to do basically historical trend reporting, but at the product level. And you cannot do, opportunity products are not supported by historical trend reporting or opportunity, what do they call it? The original, like, great granddaddy of historical trending reports, like opportunity trends, was that as of first of the month snapshots, they needed product level. And the only way, the solution was a custom, a snapshot object and a scheduled report. But they're great. Like, you can do some really, another, like, underrepresented reporting tool.
Absolutely. Well, so I wanted to answer any questions that people might have around kind of what we built out. The goal here with the PPP dashboard and the PPP process was basically, we've got a high volume of applicants. How are we going to get them through and track where people are during this process? The things I just wanted to really highlight were some of those kind of, hey, do this every time sort of things, RE stages, history tracking, queues, ownership, that sort of stuff. And then kind of show a little bit about some of the decisions we made around the kind of reports and dashboard structure. But, again, this was just me opening the door to, hey, I know what I've been working on since we've been stuck at home, because, obviously there's been a lot of demand in my particular industry. But if there's anybody out there who has built something cool in the past couple of weeks to support, maybe freshly remote workers or to track, I know Salesforce has put out some cool stuff with COVID-19 to assist folks in like tracking employees, like who have we had to furlough, who have we had to, reduce pay, that sort of stuff. But I'd love to open it up. If there's anything that people have built that they want to share, I'd love to see it, because I think we're all having an opportunity here to be really creative with the platform. Don't be shy. There might be a certification voucher in it for you if you want to share.
Heyo.
We're also at 8 minutes to 1 as well, so I understand.
Okay, so if there's a certification voucher on the line here, then I will share.
Hey, okay, all right.
My cave. So talking about the COVID. Oh, sorry.
Before you share, can I record this, or do you want me to shut the recording off?
Yeah, you can record it.
Okay, go for it.
I need to have it on record that I earned a voucher.
That's right.
Whatever we can do to help that thing.
So talking about COVID-19, so I worked on a project for a customer where we basically had 24 hours to spin up a process to track customer feedback regarding COVID-19. So why were customers reaching out to the customer service call center, and was it related to COVID-19? So we already had a customer service process in place centered around cases. So what we did was we just layered on top of that, searching for keywords within the case that would relate it to, pandemic, epidemic, COVID-19, coronavirus, like that kind of stuff, so that we could quickly identify which cases were coming in from guests that had questions or concerns centered around that topic, and then building out an escalation process so that those would get moved to the top of the queue. And then just being able to track metrics just based on that, but being able to quickly identify them and splice them out from the rest of the incoming volume.
Very cool. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing. Yes, would love to talk security sometime. Thanks, Theodore. Sorry, just looking at the chat. Go ahead, Matt.
Hey, I was just going to say, yeah, this is Matt from BC Insourcing, and just we haven't built anything out specifically for kind of all the COVID-related things, but something that I'd say has been a real win for our company has been the fact that we have a hosted contact center solution. We're utilizing Five9, but there's a bunch of them out there at this point. And that's really been something that's helped our business kind of maintain normal operations to a certain extent, with being able to send all our workforce home. It hasn't been any kind of a big upset beyond us having to buy more licenses for the product. So if you got a company that's kind of real based on that, the call centers as being part of your operations, a hosted contact center solution can really aid in this time. And we do use it within Salesforce, and it does create links for those calls in as a activity on the individual record as well. So we keep that that call associated with the employee that's calling in.
That's awesome. Cool. Yeah, the remote workforce is really awesome. I mean, people being able to log into Salesforce, obviously we're a bank, so we have security, you still got to be a VPN in and all that jazz. But I mean, just being able to do that from your house and not having to, especially all of our IT employees or all the operations folks who are used to sitting at their desk and shuffling papers, it's been really, I think, eye-opening to them of how streamlined an application process can be. Obviously, these applications are smaller businesses in most cases, and they're not as complex as our traditional commercial clients, but even still, we've really seen a lot of lift by just kind of starting from scratch with this process, and letting folks do what they need to do to get things moved forward in the application. So,
Jeff, this is Terry from Des Moines.
Hey, Terry.
I've gone through the PPP application for my own business.
Oh, yeah.
And the application changed, I think, 3 different times. I was approved, and then I was approved again a second time. Because of different changes in the program. How did you manage that on the Salesforce side through all of the changes of that program?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the application did change a few times, and I will say that it was a blessing and a curse. I didn't get pulled in early enough to where there was an expectation that the front end application was managed or built in Salesforce. So I was just taking the data from the completed applications and moving that into Salesforce and then kicking off the backend process from there. So I wasn't responsible for managing those changes. However, I did have to be responsible for ensuring that those net new fields or the changed fields or whatever were pushed in Salesforce. When it comes to, okay, I had somebody, we thought they were approved, now maybe they're not approved and we need to take action. Actually, getting them into a database like Salesforce allowed us to really quickly segment those clients out and reach out via email, so we could engage them and get whatever new documents, or if it was an additional question to answer. So net new applications, that data just was feeding in, but existing applications in the pipeline, whoever owned the application at the time, whether that was an underwriter or a processor or somebody like that, was responsible for reaching out to the client and then populating those values within the application. In some cases, like I said, it was documents. So we had to actually go get an additional document, maybe even get something signed. And we were just leveraging Salesforce files for that. But yeah, getting it in a structured database was critical, because otherwise we would have been going through every application that had gotten submitted one at a time to see if they qualified. but I could very quickly spin up a report, say, here you go, these are the problem children, go get the additional information you need, and you're good. Thanks, great question. It is 12:59, so we'd originally scheduled this from 11 to 1, I think, Dale, right? I wanted to kind of push this back to you and say, hey, do we want to, is there anything we needed to say on wrap up, any follow-up you want to just remind folks of what's going to happen next?
Sure. So Steve has already sent me his slides, so we'll get those sent out. We're going to PDF our deck as well. As I mentioned, we are putting things together for May. I was actually kind of surprised as we started thinking about this. Sponsors still would like to sponsor virtual meetings with like DoorDash giveaways, Uber Eats, local restaurants. I was actually really impressed. One sponsor said, pick a really good local restaurant and we will gladly support local for when all of this is all said and done. So, so we're working through all the details and all of that. And obviously we'll let everybody know as soon as possible. I appreciate all of you taking time out of your day, as always, to jump into these meetings. And I was really happy to see as many people as we did in a virtual setting, because virtual is different. Nothing is normal. But I think I speak for Jeff. I speak for all the pros and many time attendees, and Steve in Boston, and our friends in Iowa, and everybody. We're all in this together. Let's not lose sight of that. We are all in this together. If anybody needs anything, we are an email, a chatter message, a text, whatever away. Let's not forget that.
Absolutely. I wanted to also just kind of float out there. I know folks, sometimes it's just about being together with people, even online for a little while. So I know there's been some talk or some maybe questions about like, hey, what if we all got together and like did a trailhead badge, or what if we all got together and just like worked on some problems or something like that, sort of like a virtual Salesforce Saturday type thing, but not on a Saturday, because who wants to do that on a Saturday right now? But I'd love to get something like that going. Now that we've kind of tested out and validated this Google Hangouts functionality, I'll probably be better about maybe even some impromptu sessions when we have time, just posting something out in the community. And if you're available, join, and we'll try to give folks a little bit of notice. But again, just an opportunity to come together, and whether it's office hours or doing some trailhead or whatnot. I think,
or virtual happy hour.
Virtual happy hour, that's right. After beer 30, I'll just get
happy hour. I'm in for. Let's do that.
Do it. Let's do it right now. Everybody, go grab something right now.
Right now.
It's afternoon, right? We're good. Well, wait, Dale, stop the recording, and then we can do it. Yeah.
Oh,
good idea,
snap.
Denise.
That was
we're
recorded.
We're virtual happy hour going. I love that. That's a great idea, just to talk shop. Hang. So.
Yeah.
Do we have any collaboration regarding our KC user group on like prepping for certifications, or kind of that kind of stuff? What do you think about that?
Like some sort of study group type thing, like Terry's doing?
Yeah.
So
Terry,
I mean,
Terry could certainly. Terry is certainly getting some started for App Builder, but yeah, I think it's cool. I'd love to steal his ideas and maybe get something going here locally as well.
Yeah, we've done both the admin study, admin cert, and then getting started with the platform App Builder.
Awesome.
But yeah, there's a post in your community that outlines some of that, and we'd be happy to have you join us.
Okay, thanks, Terry. I didn't know that. Sorry.
No, no worries.
Hey, Terry. Anybody else who's out there who is studying and wants a study buddy, be sure to raise your hand in the community, because other people, even if it's not part of a more formal thing like this, formal as it is, I guess, but raise your hand, because there's people working on certs all the time. One of these days I'm going to get around to doing the the visibility and security cert that I've been studying for like a year now. So if I need somebody to push me over the edge, and I'd love to connect with anybody who's looking at that cert right now.
Yeah, absolutely. The arc path, the specific, if there's any consultants going for the specific clouds, and also even those of us who have earned some of those certifications, we're all more than happy to brain dump what we have. Terry, what I was going to ask a couple minutes ago, since you're in the teens at least on your certifications, do you know
15.
if 15? Yeah, do you know if anybody has templatized like PD1 on the developer side of things?
I'm not aware of that. I've been asked about that certification a few times from others, and but we've not put anything together for that one yet, and I'm not seeing anything either.
Gotcha.
I think our next one will probably be the advanced admin, is likely what we will do after this one.
Gotcha. All right. Well, Mr. Molis needs to jump. I think we probably all need to jump.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm going to pull the line in a minute. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Jeff.
Well done.
Thank you, everyone. Y'all are awesome. And
Awesome.
we'll get the recording uploaded later today whenever Google tells me it's available. And we'll have details out there on if Trailhead working sessions, next user group meeting, all the things.
Yeah.
We'll have it out there as soon as possible.
Awesome.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care, everybody. Be well.